Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another episode of Redacted, the show where I sit down and take a look at records that have a solid foundation but a spotty execution and making a smoother listening experience out of it. And we have a special episode here this month, folks, because this month, August of 2020, marks 2 years since I started this little show, and I am more than thankful and grateful for the feedback and reception that this show has gotten upon its initial run and continues to get with each subsequent episode. This has kind of become one of my flagship shows. A lot of you guys that are subbing to me or finding my videos or finding it through the Redacted segment, you guys really seem to enjoy it. You guys enjoy throwing your own Redacteds out there. You know, there's been a lot of discussions in the comments, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very thankful. It's a show that I've always thought was interesting, but didn't know if it had an audience, because I do weird shit all the time that doesn't seem to find an audience. But, you know, I appreciate you guys coming, finding the videos, watching them, giving feedback. I want to thank John for early on doing his own Redacted and also giving the show some traction as well and showcasing the potential in it. I really appreciate it. And because it's such a special occasion, I figured I would do something special and something a little different for the show. I'm going to be doing two things. I'm going to be fulfilling a viewer request, something I don't get to do often because while there are some requests that I've gotten that I'm still kind of working on, this show just doesn't get requests like my other shows do. And also, I'm going to be doing a record that I don't personally think needs Redacted because I think this record is great the way it is. It's one of my favorites by this particular band. So I saw it as a challenge to myself, since it was a review request, to try and redact a record that I think is perfectly fine the way it is and still see if I can enjoy the listening experience I can concoct out of it. I'm talking about the 8th record from the funk California iconic rock band, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, their 2002 record, By the Way. Now, to be completely honest, this is like one of my top 3 favorite records of the band. I think that this record is incredible. I think that the pacing is really good. I like that Frusciante kind of had a lot more to do with the concocting of this record. And I just enjoy the overall tone and mood of this project. But Camden Marshall doesn't seem to agree. He thinks this record is a little bloated, it's a little rough around the edges. And you can make that argument for a handful of Chili Peppers records, that they're a little bloated, they're a little excessive. But I feel like on By the Way in particular, they did a good job at balancing that excess with some really quality divergence in sound, expansions on Californication's overall sonic palette, and making a good listening experience. But again, I figured I'd challenge myself. I'd do something a little more off-kilter, a little more different for me personally for this segment, and try to trim up a record and make it sound a little better. He also suggested going through the B-sides, and I looked at some of the bonus tracks. I didn't look at a lot of the B-sides because, one, a lot of them aren't on streaming services, and while for Standing on the Shoulders of Giants in particular, I made a Redacted that isn't on streaming platforms, I wanted to make it a little more spreadable as far as a playlist is considered. But also, I feel like a lot of the album itself could just use with a good trimming anyway. A lot of the songs that even I cut, I enjoy, but I feel like play out a lot of the same sounds and ideas that the record as a whole was going for. I had more than enough to work with, and while I injected at least one of the bonus tracks, B-sides, from this recording sessions, I may not have done as much as you would have liked, and I actually kept some songs you didn't like, Camden. But I hope that you enjoy what I did with this project overall. I trimmed, by the way, down to 13 songs at 53 minutes, kind of the average length of a lot of my Redacteds if you look by and large. But before I dive into why I kept what particular tracks I did and kept them where I put them, let's go over and show you the track listing as a whole.
Music, the great communicator, used to sticks to make ration pop. Pistol chasing cat, thought intimate. Can I isolate your gene? Can I kiss your dopamine? Rebellion or liberate on. Throw away your television. That's for singing songs about the local news. Sitting there in a silent movie beside the only girl who read over the lawns of light, over the moon. Always told me with a smile when I was down. To tell you of the sights these eyes not alone.
love the title track of this record, but I don't think it's a great starting track. I do, however, think Can't Stop is an incredible starting track, and so I put it at the first slot of the first part of the record because I feel like it has that great build-up. While the title track has a good switch-up, I feel like it works better later on in the record, and I'll get to why I put it specifically as the penultimate track later. But I think Can't Stop, it's the biggest takeaway single from this record in hindsight. You know, I don't know if they were trying to bank on the title track being as big as, say, like a Californication, and while I like the title track as a whole, I think Can't Stop is just the bigger song as a whole, and I feel like it's a good fucking starter to this project. And I wanted to keep sort of the momentum that song kind of builds up to throughout the whole song into a more faster-paced track with Minor Thing. A track that I think is a really fun, solid funk groove with some kind of typical Chili Peppers hip-hop motivation type of delivery from Kiedis. And I feel like it's a good sort of follow-up track to Can't Stop's energy. And I wanted to sort of shift it down a little bit after that kind of 1-2 punch starter with This Is the Place, a sort of, again, a good funky groove with a little bit more of a laid-back tone that still has a gargantuan chorus, before letting it go completely into a softer territory with the Zephyr Song, a song whose guitars are a lot more stripped back, they're a lot more twinkly, a lot more, light, with a sound that's a lot more light and general. The song isn't necessarily, again, it kind of has ballad-esque moments, but it has a giant chorus, a giant bridge, and it keeps the overall sonic palette of the record. It's just kind of toning it back a little bit before picking up the energy a little more with Throw Away Your Television to introduce a little more funk into it, let the band kind of pick up some intensity as the album goes on, kind of carry the energy from Throwaway into a sound that's a little more adjacent to like what Zephyr Song is doing on Cabron. Plus, that on the record itself, that's a good 1-2 punch, and I wanted to keep that intact. I just moved it a little farther up in the track listing before leaning into a different type of song, one of the B-sides, Bicycle Song, which kind of has similar sort of feelings that Throw Away Your Television gives you, but in a less intense potency. It's got a really nice shimmery chorus, and again, kind of has the same, it shares the sonic palette of a lot of the songs that I've had in its ilk, like Zephyr Song and Cabron. It's just a good melding of the funkier ideals with that sonic palette, and that was my biggest goal with this project, honestly, before I go any further, was to keep the sonic palette consistent, because, by the way, it has a very distinct sound, and it's easy to strip that away by stripping away too many elements, and I was already stripping away songs I enjoyed, like Dozed, and so my goal was to keep enough of those songs there while keeping the flavor of a Chili Peppers experience a little more consistent across the board, because for as much as I love By the Way, I can see people's frustrations with its tone, with its pacing, and I more wanted to make it a typical Chili Peppers experience without losing necessarily the sonic palette or the Frusciante-isms that coded a lot of this project. That was my biggest goal, and I kind of extend that feeling a little further on the next couple of tracks, Midnight and On Mercury and I Could Die For You. Again, On Mercury has a bit more of a pickup in energy. Midnight is another sort of come-down moment that the album kind of winds down to, with a huge gargantuan chorus. I love the hook of Midnight, and it acts as a sort of lead-in to the last third of the record, with On Mercury being another kind of jovial, almost like, I don't want to say like a ska, but like it's got that kind of
buoyant reggae sound
to its rhythms that, again, kind of acts as a sort of thread, the integration of other rhythms and stuff and different roots and styles in a more experimental fashion, and I think executed really well on the record, but this is another point to kind of extend those branch-offs before starting another kind of 1-2 punch of a bigger sound with a little more of a laid-back energy of I Could Die For You and Don't Forget Me. Again, two really good songs from this recording session that I wanted to act as a sort of initial sort of die-down before the title track comes in. And I kept the title track here because not only does it carry the kind of energy from the tracks that I've kept before it, but it acts as another explosive, sort of kinetic song to drive you to the close of the record with the huge Venice Queen that has this brilliant progression to it that does something very similarly to the title track, but in a completely different fashion. Similarly to what Throw Away Your Television and Cabron do, similarly to what Can't Stop and Minor Thing do. I wanted to have these two 1-2 punches act as sort of the sonic palette of the record. Again, I keep going back to that phrase, the soundscape of the record, the general ideas sonically that the band is toying with, and I wanted to use that as the embodiment of those two ideals, you know, those two sonic ideals. And I think that they're great songs that pair really well together as well. I like the bigness in the title track that mirrors the bigness on Venice Queen incredibly well, and you know, it's Venice Queen. It's a California tune. You gotta close the California band's record on a California tune. Now, it was tough making this Redacted. Like I said, I enjoy this record a lot. I think it's one of my favorite Chili Peppers records. I love tracks that I cut, like Universally Speaking and Doze. I love the guitars on Doze. I love the production on Tear. I think Warm Tape is another really good track on here that I cut. Those songs in particular just sort of reinforce the new ideas, and I could see why, if you don't like By the Way, you may think that as a whole the record feels a little too bogged down in its new ideas. And so I wanted to keep a lot of those new ideas there. That's why I kept, you know, a lot of the tracks I did, Minor Thing, Zephyr Song, Midnight, but I wanted to balance it a little better with some ideas that people may expect from the Chili Peppers, and that was my biggest goal with the project. While I may not have focused as much on lyrics, you know, even if there are like lyrical consistencies across the tracks that I kept, like Throw Away Your Television, sort of lying into This Is the Place, or having the same kind of outlandish grandiosity like on the Zephyr Song and I Could Die For You and Bicycle Song to a degree. You know, it's just not the same experience I was trying to tailor that the original record does. You know, I wanted to strike that balance of the more, again, Frusciante for sure dabbled in tracks with the more reined-in Chili Peppers sound that I feel like that while it expands upon Californication, still stands above that project in tying to it under the same umbrella. And again, I just wanted to make a more well-rounded experience for those that may not enjoy By the Way as a whole. And hopefully, again, you enjoyed this particular Redacted. I like what I did here. I think it sounds really good. I think it's a good pacing. I did some of the things I personally would have done with things of singles like Can't Stop at the beginning. I definitely think is a better opener, even though I like the title track and I don't think it's a terrible opening song. And I feel like, again, even if you listen to the record proper in my version, there are some similarities. Like, Universally Speaking isn't too off from Minor Thing as far as following up the title track. I just think, or the opening track, I think it is a good lead-in song. Universally Speaking could have also fit there. I just think Minor Thing fits a little better with the tones that I was going for. And again, that's another track that melds kind of the By the Way sounds with Chili Peppers as a whole. And yeah, I don't know. What did you think of this Redacted? Did you like it? Did you like what I did with this Chili Peppers project? Do you agree with me and you don't think it really needs a Redacted? Let me know. And what's been your favorite episode? Again, we've had 2 years of this show. Is there a particular episode that has stuck with you personally? Let me know in those comments down below. If you do enjoy this video and you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. I post 6 to 7 vids a week, usually in those realms, so if you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy what I talk about. If you want to take it a step further and support me on Patreon, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Special thanks to my patrons. If you do decide to join their ranks, you get early access to content, exclusive content, and you help drive the community through polls and comments and all that sort of stuff. And you get updates a little more broadly as to what I'm going to be covering. So all that stuff is on there. I'm going to get out of here, though. Thank you so very much for watching. I have been Viral Rack. You guys are good at live situations, and I'll see you another day.